Hi, I'm mystery novelist Margot Kinberg. I'm working on a new standalone crime novel right now, tentatively called Streets of Gold. It features a 15-year-old runaway named Stacy McKinney. It's not finished yet, but I thought you might like to hear a little bit of it. So, if you're interested, grab a seat, get comfortable, and I'll read you just a bit of it. It was freezing underneath the overpass, but at least Stacy was out of the icy rain. The rain was almost worse than the snow. It could turn South Philadelphia into an icebox. She huddled up as best she could, drawing her knees to her chest, but that didn't help much. By reflex, she looked around to make sure she was alone. Then she crossed her arms on her legs and lowered her head onto them. The wind tunneled through, making it impossible to sleep, but hopefully she'd be able to at least rest a bit. She'd thought about staying at Matt's place again last night, but the price for using his extra sleeping bag was laying him, and she just couldn't face that one more time. Matt had seemed like a decent guy at first. Stacy had met him at a party at Celia's house. He was one of Celia's cousins. And when she told Celia she was leaving home, it was Celia's idea for her to stay with Matt. He'll be cool about it, Celia said. He left home too, so he gets it. And you know I won't say anything. That was enough for Stacy. She didn't see much choice anyway, so she ended up at Matt's. It took less than a week to see what a bad choice that had been. Matt had skeevy, druggy friends and kept his place in a horrible mess. He was a complete loser, but at least she stayed dry most of the time. So she'd put up with it for a few weeks. But last week, he and his idiot friends had partied until 3 for the whole weekend, and those drunken morons wouldn't leave her alone. Besides, she was tired of Matt using her whenever he couldn't get a date, so she'd finally had enough and left. Now she was wondering whether she'd made the wrong decision. She opened one eye and glanced around one last time. That was when Stacy saw the black plastic garbage bag about 50 feet away. That might make for better protection from the weather. Hopefully there wasn't anything truly disgusting in it. She got up and went over to it. It looked like her lucky day. There wasn't anything in the bag. She thought of crawling inside it, but in the end decided it was better to huddle under it. That meant there was nothing between her hoodie and jeans and the ground, but it also meant she might be better protected from the wind. She grabbed the bag and carried it back all the way under the overpass. Then she spread it out like a blanket and crawled under it. It took her a while, but she finally thawed out enough to doze off. The sound of voices nearby woke Stacy up. She had no idea how long she'd slept, but she could tell that the sky was lightening. It must be close to dawn. She didn't dare get up in case whoever it was saw her. But by turning her head just a bit, she could see out from beneath the plastic bag. In a moment, the men whose voices she'd heard came into view. "Here's good," one of them said. He was tall and had a dark coat. The man with him grunted, "About time." He was a little shorter, and it looked like he was wearing a parka. Together they were carrying a bunch of rolled up blankets. Now they put the blankets down. Tall guy looked around. Stacy didn't even breathe as he glanced at the plastic bag. After a minute, he said, "Let's get the hell out of here. It's cold as a witch's." Parka guy nodded. "Got that right." He stuffed his hands into his pocket. At least he had gloves on. Stacy's own hands grew colder as she thought about how warm those gloves must be. The two men took one more look around and then turned away and headed back where they'd come from. As soon as she dared, Stacy stuck her head out from under the plastic bag and looked in both directions. No sign of tall guy or parka guy. As quickly as she could, she went over to the rolled up pile of blankets. She touched the pile with one finger. They were dry! Finally, she might get warm. She was going to have to move quickly, though. Blankets like this wouldn't stay around long on a day like this. She'd seen fights over less than a blanket. Stacy started to pull the top one, but it was caught in with the others. She couldn't carry them all, so she was going to have to unroll the pile. Starting slowly, she gently pushed the blankets. Wait! No pile of blankets was that heavy. There was something in them. She pushed again and the pile started to unroll. That was when she saw the shoe. A man's leather shoe on a real foot, and there was the other one. As though she'd been stung, Stacy dropped the blankets and backed up. A body, and she'd nearly touched it. There was blood, too, smeared on the blankets and the body. She gulped a few times to keep her stomach from heaving and checked her hands. They were white and cold, but she hadn't gotten blood on them. Then she lifted her head and looked around. "Hey, kid, what the hell are you doing?" barked a voice behind her. Stacy looked up. Tall guy and parka guy had come back. They started to move towards her, and that was all the encouragement she needed. She turned and ran.